First things first, Paula, what's the voter turnout looking like?
Well, that's been one of the main concerns here, is that this is the second election in 6 months, and talking to a lot of potential Israeli voters, there's been a lot of apathy. People saying, well, nothing changed 6 months ago, what's really going to be different this time around? However, those fears that voters would actually not turn out don't seem to have been materialized. The latest figures we're receiving is that in the last hour, some 44% of Israelis have turned out, which is 1.5% up from this time 6 months ago. The real concerns here for Israelis is that this is an election that will decide the fate of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He essentially is fighting for his political survival.
Yeah, and Netanyahu is trying to hold on to power, of course. One of his promises ahead of the elections have been to annex the West Bank settlements.
Well, that was met with alarm, not only from left-wing Israelis, but certainly from the country's Arab minority. They make up some 20% of the population. Netanyahu, a short time ago, as you say, promising to annex West Bank settlements, promising to annex the Jordan Valley. He's also initiating negotiations with the Americans in terms of a U.S.-Israel trade deal. That's interesting because you have the American president, Donald Trump, featuring quite highly in these elections. If you just travel down any of the streets in Israel, all Netanyahu's election posters show him and Trump with their arms around each other smiling. So Netanyahu is certainly using his close relationship with the Americans to curry favor with his voters.
And since you mentioned it, how's the turnout been from Israeli Arabs and those living in the settlements?
There was a lot of concern that Arab voters would not turn out. This, too, interestingly enough, seems not to have materialized. You have Arab Israeli leaders who've been urging their population to come out despite strong voices from within the Arab community for Arabs to boycott this election. So we've received figures that early this afternoon, some 22% had turned out. So this is on track with previous elections. In terms of those in the settlement, these are predominantly your right-wing voters. They are going to have a strong showing. We're expecting that the right wing will have the majority, but this doesn't necessarily guarantee Netanyahu a victory. What happened back in April is that he had the majority of votes, but he was still unable to form a majority 61 out of 120 parliamentary seats.
All right, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. We're going to have to leave it right there. Paula Slier is in Israel.